What if you could wake up every morning with unshakable clarity? What if distractions, stress, and uncertainty didn't control your day, but instead you faced them with calm, courage, and purpose? Imagine becoming the kind of person who doesn't just survive the chaos of life, but transforms it into strength. You might think that sounds like fantasy, but for Marcus Aurelius, it was reality. He wasn't just a Roman emperor, he was a student of Stoic philosophy and a master of self-discipline. His personal writings, now known as meditations, have survived through the centuries not because they were poetic or dramatic, but because they speak directly to the soul. In his words, we find not abstract wisdom, but raw, timeless instructions for anyone seeking peace, purpose, and power over themselves. You know, in a noisy world where it's easier to scroll than reflect, more tempting to react than to respond, these ancient truths shine like a compass. Today, we're not just learning about Stoicism as some ancient school of thought. We're exploring it as a living guide, something real, something you can hold on to when everything else feels uncertain. At its core, Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion or pretending to be unaffected. It's about building the inner strength to stay calm in the storm, to act wisely when provoked, and to stay on course when life tries to pull you in every direction. It teaches you how to turn adversity into advantage, confusion into clarity, and emotional noise into silence. Whether you're tired of feeling overwhelmed or simply looking for more direction in life, this message will speak to you. Because understanding the Stoic way means seeing life differently, not as something to endure, but as something to shape. Now, let's pause for a moment. In an age overflowing with distractions, instant gratification, and the pressure to constantly prove ourselves, it's easy to drift. Easy to forget who we are or what really matters. But Marcus Aurelius gives us a lifeline through four core Stoic virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. These aren't just lofty ideals, they're practical anchors. Anchors that hold you steady when you're tempted to give in, give up, or give way. So, if you're ready to reclaim your focus, build self-control, and start living on purpose, stay with me. Because what we're about to unpack could change the way you show up to life from this very moment on. And if you're someone who values depth over noise, you're in the right place. I have one simple favor to ask. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming. Don't skip ahead, and don't let this message pass you by. If you're watching this, I believe you're different. You're not here for fluff, you're here for truth. And that makes you rare. Now let's dive into the core of it all. Marcus believed that true discipline doesn't begin with punishment or willpower, but with purpose. So let's ask, what does it really mean to find your purpose? It's not about some grand mission or a perfect 10-year plan. It's about uncovering what deeply matters to you, what stirs your spirit and pulls you forward even when life is hard. It's about aligning your daily choices with something bigger than momentary feelings. Marcus often spoke of living in agreement with nature, and no, he didn't mean hugging trees. In Stoic terms, it means living in line with your nature, your unique strengths, your calling, your virtues. For him, purpose wasn't a dreamy idea. It was a compass, a quiet but steady guide that influenced every decision, big or small. Think about it. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What holds you firm when temptation knocks? It's not applause or ambition. It's knowing your path and walking it, even when no one sees. And while modern life offers us endless options, it also creates endless confusion. We're bombarded by opinions, by pressure, by shiny things that lead us away from our center. That's why Stoic wisdom matters now more than ever. Because Stoicism teaches us to strip away the noise, the fleeting urges, the shallow desires, and to reconnect with what actually feeds our soul. It asks us to reflect, what's truly worth my time? What builds me up instead of draining me? How can my choices today serve not just me, but something greater? As you reflect, pay attention to what you naturally lean toward, the things that light you up, the struggles you feel called to solve. These aren't random, they're signals. They point toward your deeper purpose. And once you start to see it, that thread that runs through your values, interests, and strengths, you begin to practice something powerful: daily alignment. That's where self-discipline takes root, not in restriction, but in clarity. When you know what matters, you learn to say no to what doesn't and yes to what does. Over time, that habit of daily alignment strengthens your discipline and reshapes your life. Marcus didn't wait for motivation. He didn't depend on mood. He asked himself each morning, what must I do today? And each night, did I live true to my nature? This wasn't performance, it was practice. A daily recalibration, a quiet return to purpose. And the beauty is you can do this too. You don't need to be an emperor. Just begin by asking the same questions and listening closely for the answers. And here's one more thing Marcus reminds us. True discipline also means learning to rely on yourself, not in isolation, not in pride, but in quiet responsibility. You are the one who must act. You are the one who decides. No one else can do your growth for you. And while support from others is beautiful, it's your choices, your responses, and your mindset that shape your future. The Stoic path doesn't ask you to be alone, but it asks you to be accountable, to stop blaming, to start owning. This, my friend, is where the journey begins. Picking up from where we left off, once you begin aligning with your deeper purpose, something inside you shifts. You start realizing that true self-discipline isn't about being hard on yourself, it's about learning to rely on yourself. That's where Stoicism guides us next. You see, at the heart of this philosophy lies a powerful idea: focus only on what's within your control. It sounds simple, even obvious, but just pause and ask yourself, how often do you actually live this way? Marcus Aurelius returned to this principle again and again in his writings. He believed that strength comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering your response to it. By learning to count on yourself, you uncover a quiet kind of resilience, an inner strength that doesn't shout but holds firm when everything else shakes. Stoicism teaches us that self-confidence isn't built through bravado or bold declarations, but through calm competence, through knowing your values and living by them. And yet, in today's hyper-connected world, where 100 opinions are only a click away, this kind of confidence can feel distant. We're flooded with advice, comparisons, judgments, and in all that noise, the voice we struggle to hear most is our own. So how do we reclaim that inner voice? How do we learn to trust it again? The Stoics tell us, filter out the noise, tune back into reason. For Marcus, the most trustworthy guide wasn't any external teacher. It was the quiet, steady wisdom that comes from within, rooted in virtue. When you rely on yourself, not out of pride, but from clarity, you begin making decisions that align with who you truly are. You stop reacting to every passing emotion or external pressure, and instead, you act from intention. This is where autonomy begins, not in isolation, but in integrity. When your choices reflect your principles, you begin to experience a deep kind of freedom, the kind that can't be taken from you. But let's be honest, it doesn't happen overnight. So, how do we start to truly count on ourselves? It starts small. You set a goal and you show up for it. You make a promise and you keep it. You pause each day to ask yourself, did that decision reflect my values? These simple acts might seem ordinary, but they build the muscle of self-discipline. Bit by bit, you become someone who can be trusted by others, yes, but more importantly, by yourself. And with that, trust comes grounding. A sense that even when life shakes, you won't collapse. Marcus Aurelius often emphasized a powerful habit, one that shaped not just his rule as an emperor, but his personal character, the discipline of showing up, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, every single day. To him, discipline wasn't found in bursts of grand effort. It was carved out in the quiet, repeated rhythm of everyday actions. That's what forged strength. And showing up, he believed, was how we live in agreement with nature, not by merely existing, but by participating, by contributing, by doing what is ours to do, however simple or mundane it may be. The Stoics didn't seek heroic moments, they sought consistency. And in our world of quick dopamine hits and short-lived motivation, that's more relevant than ever. Because let's face it, anyone can feel inspired for a day, but real discipline, that's what shows up after the excitement fades. That's what keeps you moving when progress feels slow or invisible. And Stoicism reminds us it's not about intensity, it's about regularity. It's not about making today perfect, it's about not letting today go to waste. Whether you're chasing a dream, building a habit, or repairing a relationship, it all begins with one decision: to keep showing up again and again. Now, this doesn't mean every day has to be exceptional. Some days will be quiet, some will be hard, but none should be forgotten, because even the smallest effort when done with presence holds power. And that's where mindfulness enters. Marcus didn't write about multitasking or doing more. He wrote about doing the task at hand fully, completely, with care. Today's work done today. Not dragging the weight of yesterday, not rushing ahead to tomorrow, just being here. Now, that kind of presence turns routine into purpose, effort into transformation. So if you're wondering how to begin, start small. Really. Just decide what showing up looks like for you today. Maybe it's writing one paragraph of your book. Maybe it's 5 honest minutes of movement. Or 10 uninterrupted minutes listening to someone you love. The size doesn't matter, the sincerity does. Because every time you follow through, you strengthen your will. Every time you show up when you could have made an excuse, you're building something that lasts. And that, right there, is what defines Stoic discipline. It's not rigid, it's not cold, it's deeply human. It's about accepting that we can't control outcomes, but we can always control effort. And in that effort done day after day, we begin to shape a life of meaning. Marcus Aurelius believed that this kind of steady practice prepares us not just for goals, but for life's unexpected storms. Because life, as we both know, doesn't always go according to plan. And that's why the Stoics didn't just train for success, they trained for adversity. And one of the most powerful ways they did that was through the voluntary practice of discomfort. That's why the Stoics chose to embrace discomfort voluntarily before life forced it upon them. Building resilience, they believed, wasn't something you waited for during hard times. It was something you practiced. Every time you give up a small luxury, challenge your body, or deny yourself an impulse, you're quietly strengthening something inside. Like exercising a muscle, you're preparing your mind to stay steady when the ground beneath you shifts. Why? Because if you're already familiar with difficulty, unexpected adversity won't catch you off guard. You'll meet it not with panic, but with calm and clarity. But still, a question remains: why would anyone choose hardship in a world obsessed with comfort? The answer goes deep into the Stoic mindset. Growth, they believed, doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens at the edges where comfort ends and challenge begins. So when you intentionally step into moments of discomfort, big or small, you're expanding your mental and emotional range. You're not punishing yourself. You're preparing yourself. You stop seeing comfort as something you're entitled to and start seeing it as a privilege, not a need. And that simple shift changes everything. You know, something else happens when you practice this. You begin to feel more grateful. It's easy to take the little things for granted until you go without them. Skip a meal, and suddenly that next bite tastes like a gift. Walk instead of drive, and your legs feel like power, not inconvenience. These moments, small as they are, wake us up. They reconnect us to what we have, and even more, they remind us that not everyone gets to choose their hardships. Many people live with daily discomfort not by choice, but by circumstance. And when we voluntarily walk just a step in that direction, we start to grow in empathy, humility, and understanding. That's what makes this Stoic practice so human. It grounds us not in theory, but in reality. The shared, fragile, beautiful reality of being alive. So how do we bring this into modern life? Again, start small. Wake up an hour earlier than you feel like. Choose the stairs instead of the elevator. Turn off your phone for a day. It doesn't have to be extreme. The power isn't in the size of the challenge, it's in the intention behind it. When you choose discomfort with purpose, you build mental toughness. And more importantly, you build the self-discipline that shapes who you become. This also brings us to another essential Stoic truth, one that sits quietly at the center of their philosophy. Learn to focus only on what you can control. Sounds simple, but let that sink in. Really think about it. Most of our stress doesn't come from what happens. It comes from wishing we could control what we can't. The Stoics weren't saying to ignore the world. They were saying, save your energy. Stop trying to bend the wind. Focus on the sail. So what exactly lies within your control? According to Stoicism, it's your thoughts, your choices, your reactions, your judgments, your will. That's it. Not the weather, not what others do or think, not global chaos or random outcomes. Just you. Marcus Aurelius came back to this point again and again. He wrote that getting upset over things beyond your control is not only useless, it actively harms your peace. You lose twice, once to the event and again to your reaction. But this isn't passive acceptance, it's power. Because when you stop trying to fix the world and start mastering your response, you become unshakable. That's what Stoicism calls the dichotomy of control. And the more you live by it, the more peace you find without needing the world to change for you. You become effective, not reactive. Calm, not indifferent. Steady, not stubborn. Of course, this takes practice. It's easier said than done, right? But like any muscle, it grows with use. So try this. Before you react to something, pause and ask, is this within my control? If not, let it go. Just breathe and move forward. This one habit can lower anxiety, reduce reactivity, and make your energy feel less scattered. And over time, it does something even deeper. It changes how you set goals. You stop tying your happiness to results that are out of your hands. You stop saying, "I'll be okay if I succeed." Instead, you start saying, "I'll be proud of how I showed up." That's a shift in power. That's where freedom begins. Marcus Aurelius never promised life without chaos, but he gave us a way to walk through it with dignity and strength, to lead ourselves inward even when the world is uncertain. And here's what's beautiful. When you live this way, you don't just help yourself, you become an example to others. Your calm becomes contagious. Your discipline inspires. Your steadiness offers peace to those who feel tossed around. In this way, Stoicism becomes more than just personal, it becomes service. A quiet offering to the world, not through loud speeches, but through how you carry yourself, especially when things don't go your way. This is where personal responsibility meets self-mastery, and this is where Stoicism draws a sharp line between those who blame the world and those who shape themselves. Instead of falling into the trap of victimhood where life happens to you, you take your power back. You claim your choices, your interpretations, your growth. You stop being a passive receiver of events and start becoming the one who transforms them from the inside out. So when you stop blaming and start owning your response, you begin to take your power back. This shift is at the heart of Stoic thought, that your peace, your sense of happiness, your stability, they're not dictated by the chaos around you, but by the calm within you. Life will throw its punches, that's certain. But how you respond, that's always your choice. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we don't get to control what happens to us, but we do get to control what happens in us. That one truth changes everything, because when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance, you stop giving your power away to things you can't control. You stop saying, "Life made me feel this way," and start asking, "How do I want to respond to this?" That simple question unlocks your inner strength. But this isn't about pretending life is easy. It's not about denying pain, disappointment, or injustice. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress your feelings. It invites you to understand them, to feel them fully, and then decide what to do next. Have you ever caught yourself spiraling, stuck in frustration, blaming the world, or waiting for someone else to fix it? We all have. But the Stoics say don't stop at the emotion. Ask yourself what it's telling you. Then take back the steering wheel. Don't let pain define you, let it refine you. That's where growth begins. Because every obstacle, every challenge becomes a test, a moment to practice virtue. Will you choose courage? Will you choose discipline? Will you rise above resentment and choose clarity instead? Each difficulty is an invitation, a chance to prove, not to others, but to yourself, that you're grounded in something deeper than emotion. And when you meet those tests with grace, with resilience, with intention, you become stronger. Not just mentally, but morally. You build character not through ease, but through response. This is what it means to develop emotional independence. You become someone who can stand calm even when the world feels unstable. You're not cold, you're composed. You're not distant, you're grounded. You're not unaffected, but you're not controlled by every wave that hits. Marcus Aurelius believed that a person who refuses to play the victim doesn't just survive life, they live it with dignity, with quiet power, and that kind of life, one built on internal steadiness, is a free life. Not because it's painless, but because it's anchored in truth. And part of that truth is learning to master your impulses, not by rejecting pleasure altogether, but by knowing when to wait. This is where the Stoics introduce another key principle: delayed gratification. It's the practice of trading short-term pleasure for long-term fulfillment, not because the pleasure is wrong, but because the timing matters. And this idea, though ancient, is incredibly relevant today. In a world wired for instant everything, the ability to wait, to pause, to delay, that's not just rare, it's powerful. Marcus Aurelius believed that when we're ruled by our impulses, we lose our freedom. Think about that. How often do we act not because it's right, but because it's easy? The Stoic path invites us to pause, to ask, does this serve my higher self or just my momentary craving? When we make decisions from reason, not reaction, we regain control. We stop being dragged by every whim and start living with direction. Over time, this builds a kind of quiet confidence, a self-trust that goes deeper than discipline. And no, you don't have to make huge sacrifices to start. You begin in the small things, choosing to save instead of spending on impulse, reaching for real food instead of fast food, choosing to study instead of scrolling, giving your energy to something meaningful instead of settling for another moment of mindless escape. These aren't just habits, they're signals to your brain, your body, your soul, that you're in charge, that you are choosing growth. And little by little, that choice reshapes your life. Modern science backs this up. Studies show that people who can delay gratification tend to experience better health, stronger relationships, more success, and higher emotional resilience. Why? Because they've trained their minds to hold steady, to wait for what matters. And this ties into another Stoic insight: don't let your worth rise and fall with other people's approval. Don't build your identity on applause or acceptance. Because when you do, you place your peace in someone else's hands. And that's a dangerous trade. For the Stoics, the opinions of others, whether praise or criticism, are outside your control. So why let them decide your direction? Marcus Aurelius wrote endlessly about this. Focus only on what is yours to control: your thoughts, your actions, your integrity. True peace, he said, can't be shaken by someone else's judgment because it's rooted inside you, not handed to you by the crowd. And that's the freedom the Stoics are really pointing to. Not a life free from struggle, but a life free from emotional captivity. One where you live by reason, by virtue, by alignment with your highest self, no matter what noise surrounds you. So once you begin anchoring your peace within, there's one more crucial step: learning how to stay grounded even when the world throws its opinions at you. The Stoics were clear about this. Emotional independence isn't about shutting out others, but about protecting your mental space. In a world overflowing with noise, where opinions travel faster than facts and criticism is often impulsive, choosing what to absorb and what to ignore becomes an act of self-preservation. You're not dismissing others, you're simply choosing which voices deserve a seat at your table. Stoicism teaches us to filter through all that external chatter and ask, does this serve my purpose? Does it align with my values? You know, not all criticism is the same. Some can be helpful, wise words from people who care, but much of it, especially today, is baseless, reactive, or rooted in someone else's fear or insecurity. That's why we need discernment. The Stoic doesn't reject feedback, but they examine it. Is this informed? Is it well-meaning? Does it help me grow? If not, let it pass. Let it drift by like a cloud. Because your energy is limited, and wasting it on unhelpful opinions only derails your focus. Instead, build a life so deeply grounded in your own values that you don't need the world's constant validation. This was something Marcus Aurelius practiced daily, even as emperor surrounded by opinions, flattery, and judgment. He trained himself to remain centered, not from arrogance, but from clarity. He knew who he was, he knew what he stood for, and from that place, he acted. That kind of clarity makes you less reactive to every passing voice and more anchored in your long-term vision. Especially today, when algorithms reward emotional reactivity, choosing to be still, choosing to stay aligned with yourself is radical, rare, powerful. When you practice the art of ignoring naysayers, you're not being cold. You're choosing how and where to invest your emotional energy. You're deciding not to let external noise drown out the inner voice, the one that truly guides your path. That's the voice that shapes your life. And here's another key to cultivating that voice: emulation. One of the most powerful tools the Stoics recommended for growth was to observe and learn from those who have lived wisely before us. Not to copy, but to be inspired, to study how they moved through the world, how they chose virtue when it wasn't easy, how they embodied strength without show. Marcus Aurelius, despite his status, often wrote about his deep respect for the people who influenced him, not just philosophers, but anyone whose character he admired. For him, wisdom wasn't just a theory, it was something you lived, something you witnessed in others and then practiced yourself. Choosing whom to emulate means asking, who do I want to become? Who models the values I wish to live by, like courage, discipline, humility, or integrity? It could be a historical figure, a teacher, a character from a book, even a friend. What matters isn't their fame, but the strength of their example. And here's the beautiful part: when we consciously study these people, we begin to bridge the gap between Stoic ideas and real-life actions. It becomes less abstract, more real. You see a situation and think, how would they handle this? And slowly, those answers start coming from inside you, not imitation, but integration. That's how Stoicism comes alive, not just in meditation or reflection, but in daily choices. And if you want to take it deeper, don't just observe others. Start observing yourself. That's what Marcus did. Every day, he reviewed his thoughts, his actions, his impulses, not to beat himself up, but to understand. Did I live today with courage? Did I speak from wisdom? Did I drift, or did I stay true to what matters? This practice, done quietly at the end of the day, becomes a mirror, and what you see there without judgment helps you grow. This daily reflection is not about perfection. It's about awareness. It's not about dwelling on mistakes, but using them. You ask, where did I fall short? Not to punish yourself, but to learn, to adjust, to do a little better tomorrow. You start becoming the student and the teacher of your own life. That's where real development happens, not in theory, but in the loop between action and reflection, between choice and correction. And over time, this builds something rare, a kind of wisdom that isn't loud, a kind of strength that doesn't shout. You start aligning your life day by day with the Stoic virtues of wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Not because someone told you to, but because you chose to. And in that quiet commitment, you begin to become the kind of person you once admired. And just like those we choose to emulate, we too can become examples if we're willing to pause, reflect, and grow. Marcus Aurelius didn't review his day to judge himself harshly. He did it to stay awake, to ensure that while he fulfilled his duties as emperor, he also continued to grow as a human being. That's a powerful lesson. In a world that often rushes us forward, this simple habit of ending the day with quiet reflection can feel revolutionary. Just pause and ask yourself, how did I respond to difficulty today? Did I stay aligned with what I believe in? Where did I lose my balance and why? These aren't questions for guilt, they're questions for growth. Because when you reflect with honesty, you start living with intention. You become more aware not only of your actions, but of the thoughts behind them. And that awareness becomes the compass that guides you through each day with clarity. Over time, this practice helps dissolve the noise and pressure of modern life. Instead of carrying stress or regret into tomorrow, you meet the day lighter, cleaner, more prepared. You face life from a place of grounded calm instead of scattered reaction. That's the real strength Stoicism offers. Not a shield from life, but a way to walk through it with grace. And this is what makes Stoicism so deeply relevant. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being responsible. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about showing up for yourself every day and gently asking, what kind of person am I becoming? Through this reflection, you become both the student and the teacher of your life. And with each small lesson, each moment of clarity, you grow not in theory, but in practice. Not once, but every day. So thank you for walking this path with us through the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius and the heart of Stoic philosophy. If this video brought you clarity, strength, or peace, consider subscribing to the channel. It's free, and it helps us continue sharing these timeless ideas with people like you who are ready to live with greater depth. If you found this message helpful, please give the video a like. It helps the algorithm recommend it to others who may need it most. And if you'd like to keep going, we invite you to explore our playlist, Stoic Wisdom, Mastering Emotions, and Inner Strength. It's filled with tools to help you stay grounded even when life gets loud. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and keep walking your path with quiet courage. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people like you, living from the inside out.